Folks, with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Now, in this essay, I'd like to talk about the issue of putting diversity, equity, inclusion, affirmative action, people in jobs or in anything at all, even through school and college and so on, for the ideological purpose of creating equal outcomes. Now, the baseline rationale they use is if there are more straight white males in an occupation than others, then it must be because of evil Hitler, Nazi, swastika, fascist racism. It must be. There can be no other reason. So we have to correct, because it's a moral wrong. Thus, we have to correct it to ensure equal outcomes. Now, the problems begin straight away, because the reason there's a surplus of straight white males in these roles is because they've worked harder at school, they've hit the books, they've done better in exams, they've studied hard, they've worked hard, they've done their 80-hour weeks, they arrive early and leave late at the office. That's why there are a surplus of straight white males, or a majority rather of straight white males there. And the reverse is also why there are not more minorities there, because they don't hit the books as hard, they don't do as well at school, they don't try as hard, they goof off more, they arrive late, they leave early, and so on and so on. That's why. That's the difference. So in terms of dependability, reliability, accuracy, technical competence, the white people tick those boxes, and the minorities, with some exceptions, of course, don't. So that's the problem. So now you have to create an equal outcome where people of much lower caliber are going to be shoehorned into these roles because of diversity and affirmative action and so on, simply to create the ideological equal outcomes veneer. But people of equal capability, you just have an equal number of people in those occupations. And of course, they're not interested in in equality or equal outcomes for rat catchers or sewage pipe cleaners. It's only in the more prestigious jobs and the better paid jobs. That's where they want the equal outcomes. So it'll come as no surprise, and I come across it all the time. I don't think a day goes by when I don't come across it. But we recently, not long ago, had some work that involved some very technical documents and scientific documents, that sort of thing, where we were working on those, and we were given they needed to be updated, and so we were given the existing documents, and I was staggered at the piss poor quality of them. Now, the quality of these documents, of course, had been put together by people. English wasn't even their first language, for goodness sakes. Had been put together by people that lacked the technical competence, the skill, the knowledge, the language capability. The sloppiness was just all over the place. These people clearly didn't care about producing quality work or reliable and accurate work. And so what ended up being signed off on, but nobody wanted to not sign, nobody wanted to send it back, say, that's not good enough. You got to do that again. Nobody did that because the people doing it were minorities. And if you said, well, it's not good enough, I'm sending it back, that's racist, it's Nazi, it's swastika, so just everybody signed off on this as it went down the line. And so this very substandard work that come in. Now, everybody kind of knew the work was substandard, but nobody wanted to do anything because the ideology of diversity, equity, inclusion, and affirmative, the quotas and all this, that ideology, it was apparent. That ideology was right at the top of the power decision-making tree. Everything else was subservient to that. So you must have this ideology as being the guiding and principal force. Everything else was a subset or again subservient to that requirement. So the standards, of course, were lowered and had to be lowered all over the place. The sort of people hired, the jobs that they were given, the acceptance of very poor quality work, the lack of corrective mechanisms, the lack of review, the lack of oversight. Everything was contributing to the ideology, and nothing was contributing to the quality of the work. Now, with white people, they say, hey, Billy Bob, this work's not good enough. You need to do it again. Okay, all right, that sort of thing. And that's just accepted. That's how you do it. There's nothing personal or judgmental. You just need to do it again. It's not good enough. To an objective standard. An objective standard, that work's not good enough. You have to do it again. But when you've got affirmative action, box ticking, diversity hires, you can't do that because the ideology comes first. So if you go back and say, hey, Deshaun, this is not good enough, then Deshaun would say, well, you're only saying that because you're a Nazi, fascist, Hitler, swastika. You're a racist, and I'm going to go to HR and get your ass fired. So you can't do it there. The same ability to correct poor quality work just doesn't exist because you might offend somebody. And I see this all the time. I just take it as it's just how it is now. If you get upset about it, you'll get yourself all worked up. But it's just everywhere, wherever you go. Whenever I go to a meeting or I don't know a trade expo or anything like that, I know I'm going to be and I'm never disappointed, by the way. I know I'm going to be dealing with people who, the majority of whom, not every one of them, there is exceptions, the majority of whom, shouldn't even have a job. They're so fucking useless. But here they hold quite senior roles, and they've been given engineering manager, executive vice president of engineering and technology. And again, you wouldn't hire these people to sweep the floor, let alone have these roles. So it'll come as no surprise that there was one of many cases in the United States where it was discovered that people working in a criminal, like forensics, forensics including ballistics, that sort of stuff, they decided to go full on with diversity hires here. And if you look down the list of people who were working there and doing these forensic examinations or so on, you very quick you could arrive at the conclusion without needing to go any further. Shaniqua, Deshaun, Shalele, Pablo, Abdul Muhammad Abdul, and you just go down the list. And I would look at that in horror and say, okay, well, there's a real likelihood that none of those people are qualified, or even remotely qualified. So after an endless array of fuck-ups, which were costing the taxpayer huge dollars, where the guilty were, walking free, where the innocent were being thrown in prison, this sort of stuff. Finally, even the most affirmative action-minded person said, "Oh, okay, maybe we've got to look at this." So there is even a limit for those sort of people. But if no one had scrutinised it, there'd probably still be going on today. Because managing the narrative they see as the key issue when you're trying to defend affirmative action. Managing the narrative is key. So if you can sweep all the mistakes under the carpet, then or hide them, or lie about them, or deceive others about then that's what you need to do. Solving the problem? No, we don't do that, because then you couldn't have your affirmative action. If you're going to solve the problem, you have to have competent people in these roles. And if you do that, then it's going to be white people, which means it's not affirmative action. Which means you're back to Hitler and swastika. So that's their thinking anyway. So they ended up having to get some outside experts to come in and review the work. And over 90% of the verdicts that they'd reached, this was the forensic examination, 90% of the verdicts they reached were principally or totally incorrect. And guess what? All the people who reviewed the work were straight white males. So this report, of course, is quite damning. Now, the government, local government in this case, tried to hide it and sweep it under the carpet and say, a few paperwork problems, no big deal. But such were but they refused steadfastly, and this is the rub here, that they, rather than say, okay, all right, we can't put affirmative action people in here, it's not going to work, we have to hire people based on, their qualifications and capability and so on. But instead of doing that, they just shut the whole thing down. They just shut it all down. Rather than bite the bullet and hire qualified people, they just shut it all down. And that's the lengths they'll go to. Now, the cost to the taxpayer and the miscarriages of justice, the list goes on of the problems that came from this. But rather than correct it, they decided to hang on for years, for grim death, trying to maintain the affirmative action narrative, rather than get qualified, competent people that was clearly in the public good, in the public interest. Rather than do that, they refused point blank. Now, this is pretty much the mindset and the attitude set wherever you see affirmative action, whether it's affirmative action in education, putting IQ 70 kids through high school and into university, all this sort of thing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter wherever you see it. But standards have to be lowered in order to achieve the equal outcome. Air traffic controllers, the list goes on, pilots. Whereas, an independent, merit-based, impartial standard needs to be there for the common good, the public good. Does that mean minorities, unless they want to work hard, change their attitude and so on? Does that mean they're going to miss out and say, well, yeah? But then that same minorities, what do you want them to have a minority pilot and they all die anyway? Or say, should wherever there's a black pilot, should only black passengers travel with them? Like, where do you go with this in the end? As soon as you lower standards and come off the merit, the independent, impartial merit standard, then these problems occur. These sort of problems occur. But the response to them is where the serious damage comes in, which is trying to hide it and to sticking, fanatically to the ideological outcome or the pursuit of the ideological outcome, and forgetting about all the collateral and very extensive collateral damage. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.